Do you believe that a player selected in the top 3 of the draft could be discarded by 5 different teams before even reaching his prime? Can you imagine being called a bust, a disappointment, and still turn all of that into fuel to become the mastermind behind one of the greatest underdog stories in NBA history? This is the story of Chauncey Billups, a point guard who started his career with huge expectations, only to be cast aside, labeled as someone who would never make it. But while many would have given up, he rose. He worked in silence, sharpened his game, waited for the right moment. And when it came, he didn't just seize it, he made history. In today's video, you're going to discover the journey of a man who went from forgotten to finals MVP, from trade bait to legend. So go ahead and hit that like button, share this video with someone who loves basketball, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more stories like this. And tell us in the comments, what's your most memorable Chauncey Billups moment? I want to know. Now get ready, because this story will touch your heart. Chauncey Ray Billups was born on September 25, 1976, in Denver, Colorado. From an early age, basketball ran through his veins. Playing on local courts, he quickly became known as a rare talent, a point guard with elite court vision, physical strength, and a natural leadership mentality. At George Washington High School, his name echoed from the bleachers. And when he moved on to the University of Colorado, he put their basketball program on the national map, something few had ever done. His talent was undeniable. In 1997, Billups declared for the NBA draft. The Boston Celtics, thrilled with his potential, selected him with the 3rd overall pick. Expectations were sky high. Chauncey was set to become the new floor general for the most storied franchise in NBA history. But the dream quickly turned into a fog of frustration. In his rookie season, he played under the stern Rick Pitino. There was no chemistry between them. Billups needed creative freedom to thrive, but was shackled by a rigid system that didn't understand his game. After just 51 games, he was traded to the Toronto Raptors. And so the roller coaster began. Think about it, a top 3 draft pick traded before even finishing his first season. The message was clear to the basketball world: this guy isn't what we thought. But few knew the truth behind Billups' calm eyes. He knew who he was, and he knew his time would come. In the years that followed, he bounced around to teams like the Denver Nuggets and Orlando Magic. Always a temporary piece, always trade material. To critics, he was just another wasted talent. To coaches, a player who hadn't found his place yet. But deep down, Billups believed something that few could see. He wasn't the problem. He just hadn't found the right system yet. And thus began the quiet construction of one of the most respected point guards of his generation. For most players, getting traded once is already painful. But for Chauncey Billups, it became routine. After short stints in Boston, Toronto, Denver, and Orlando, his career became marked by a string of never-ending trades. Every time he packed his bags, he left behind a piece of the dream he had nurtured since childhood. He was seen as an okay point guard, someone who didn't live up to the hype of being a top 3 pick. Worse, he began to carry the label of an inconsistent player. Analysts claimed he lacked game control, made poor decisions in crucial moments, and perhaps was just another talent that would never bloom. But what no one saw was the mental strength growing inside him with every setback. During this dark period, Billups threw himself into his work. He stayed after practice, obsessively watched his own games to pinpoint what needed improvement. While the NBA dismissed him as expendable, he was rebuilding himself in silence. Imagine the psychological toll. A 22-year-old black man, drafted at the top, and in less than 2 years playing limited minutes, with zero certainty about where he'd be next season. It was like flying in a plane nosediving, but without panic. Billups was calm, focused, and waiting for the right moment to take control. It was during this time he developed what would become his trademark trait: unshakable confidence in clutch moments. Even when sidelined, even without job security, he trained like a starting point guard on a championship team. Many saw him as a failure, but he was merely being forged by fire. And every disappointment became fuel for what was to come. Because once he finally found the right team, the right coach, and the right opportunity, the world would see who Chauncey Billups truly was. When everything around him seemed to collapse, when the media turned its attention to other names, and when even the fans stopped believing, Chauncey Billups kept going. It's easy to have faith when everyone supports you. Harder is keeping faith when the entire world calls you a disappointment. But Billups never saw himself that way. During those silent nights, he was in the gym, finishing shots alone, visualizing every play. His work ethic was borderline obsessive. While many of his peers chased the spotlight, he chased excellence. He didn't want fame, he wanted to be complete. With the unwavering support of his family and wife, Piper, Billups built an emotional foundation that never cracked. In his hardest moments, his family was his anchor. They reminded him who he was, where he came from, and why he should never quit. While many players crumbled under constant trades, short contracts, and coaches who didn't believe in them, Billups grew stronger with every no. It was during this time he developed a defining trait: the mindset of a silent leader. He observed. He absorbed. He studied what worked and what didn't in every offensive system he passed through. He learned tactics, game reading, and most of all, how to make his teammates better. Chauncey was being shaped by every rejection. Each trade pushed him deeper into himself, but he never broke. On the contrary, he emerged stronger. And it was with that resilient spirit, with that unbreakable soul, that he entered the 2000 to 2001 season, ready to finally show the world. His time had come. It was the year 2000 and Chauncey Billups signed with the Minnesota Timberwolves, a team built around a rising superstar, Kevin Garnett. At first it seemed like just another short-term fit, another trial run. But in the cold of Minneapolis, something began to shift. For the first time in his career, Billups felt heard. Coach Flip Saunders saw more than stats in him. He saw a point guard with intelligence, control, and leadership. Saunders gave him command, gave him freedom to fail, gave him space to grow. And Billups responded with maturity. That season, still coming off the bench, he posted modest but steady numbers. Then, when starting point guard Terrell Brandon went down with an injury, the door Billups had been waiting to open for years finally did. He was promoted to starter, and he seized the moment with everything he had. No longer the insecure kid from Boston or the passenger in Denver, Billups was now a player who controlled tempo, made the team flow, and, most importantly, earned the respect of his teammates and coaches. Playing alongside Kevin Garnett, one of the most intense competitors in NBA history, Billups found a rare chemistry. The two understood each other on the court, and Garnett saw in Chauncey a leader who could shoulder the weight of responsibility. It was there that Billups discovered his true role in the NBA, that of a floor general. Even when his contract with Minnesota wasn't renewed, something had changed. For the first time, people began to realize that maybe, just maybe, Chauncey Billups had been judged too early. And more importantly, he knew it with absolute certainty. Minnesota wasn't the final destination, but it was where the flame was reignited. It was the prelude to the transformation of an overlooked player into an NBA legend. Detroit. A city shaped by factories, sweat, and grit. A place where hard work speaks louder than fancy words. And it was exactly there that Chauncey Billups found his true home. In 2002, he signed with the Detroit Pistons, a franchise in rebuild mode, but with a strong identity: defense, unity, and relentless effort. There were no superstars, just blue-collar ballplayers. It was the perfect setting for a player who had spent years being underestimated and was now ready to lead. In the Motor City, Billups didn't need to prove he was marketable. He needed to prove he was effective. And that's exactly what he did. Under coach Rick Carlisle and later Larry Brown, Billups finally found continuity. He was given a structured tactical system and responded like few others. He controlled the game like a maestro. He knew when to push, when to pause, when to feed his teammates, and when to take over himself. But what impressed the most was his calm and clutch moments. While many guards lost composure under pressure, Billups seemed to slow time down. He read defenses like a chess master, always 2 or 3 moves ahead. And Detroit noticed immediately. He was quickly nicknamed Mr. Big Shot. The man for the moment, the cold-blooded shooter, the mind of steel. More than stats, Chauncey Billups brought a new mindset to the Pistons' locker room. He was the glue that held together Rasheed Wallace, Ben Wallace, Tayshaun Prince, and Richard Hamilton. He wasn't the most athletic nor the fastest, but he was the most essential. Detroit and Billups mirrored each other, a city that had been overlooked and a player many had given up on. And together, they were about to write one of the most surprising chapters in NBA history. At the heart of the Pistons, Chauncey Billups truly transformed. What began in Minnesota took full shape in Detroit. He wasn't just another point guard. He was the commander-in-chief of a team that played as one. With his cerebral and composed style, Billups did something rare in the NBA. He controlled the game without having to dominate the ball. He knew where to put his teammates, how to expose an opponent's weakness, and how to capitalize on even the smallest mistake, like a seasoned tactician. But what truly set Billups apart was his emotional and psychological impact on the team. While Rasheed Wallace was the fire and Ben Wallace the wall, Billups was the ice, the balance. When the games got tight and tension rose, he stepped up. He took the shots without hesitation. made decisions with surgical precision. His composure in critical moments earned him the respect of even the fiercest rivals. It was during this time that the Pistons became the terror of the East. They didn't have media darlings like Kobe or Iverson. They won through chemistry, defense, and execution. And at the center of this flawless machine was Billups, the maestro who made every note hit at the right time. He reinvented himself. From forgotten player to one of the most respected point guards in the league. From trade bait to tactical reference point. From bench warmer to the voice of a championship orchestra. And when the 2003 to 2004 season began, few believed that this blue-collar team would go far. But Billups knew something that others didn't. They had chemistry. They had identity. And most of all, they had purpose. The next chapter wouldn't just silence critics, it would become eternal. The 2003 to 2004 season was the climax of everything Chauncey Billups had built in silence. The Detroit Pistons entered the playoffs without fanfare, but with the confidence of a team that knew exactly who they were. Solid, disciplined, and driven by the hunger to prove that team basketball still had a place in a superstar-driven league. That season, the Pistons' defense was historic. Ben Wallace was a pillar in the paint, Tayshaun Prince a relentless defender, and Richard Hamilton a tireless engine. But at the core of the machine was Billups, orchestrating like an elite general, making pinpoint decisions, setting the tempo, and shutting down any attempt at a comeback. In the playoffs, Detroit dismantled opponents with authority and reached the finals to face the Los Angeles Lakers, Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, Karl Malone, and Gary Payton. A constellation of talent. Many called the series a mismatch. The media practically handed the trophy to LA before the tip-off. But Detroit had Billups. And he knew this was the chance of a lifetime. During the finals, Chauncey didn't just lead, he dominated. Averaging 21 points, 5.2 assists, and 3.2 rebounds per game, he torched the Lakers' backcourt. He controlled the pace, dissected the defense with smart drives, and knocked down clutch shots with surgical cold-bloodedness. He didn't run from the moment, he volunteered for it. The world tuned in expecting a Lakers sweep. But what they saw was a lesson in team basketball. A masterclass in leadership by a player few had considered elite. And when the final buzzer sounded, Detroit was NBA champion. And Billups, the man so often overlooked, was named Finals MVP. That night wasn't just a win for a team. It was the crowning of a resilient spirit. Chauncey Billups looked at that trophy as if to say, "I told you I was ready. You just weren't listening." The 2004 Finals MVP award was more than an honor for Chauncey Billups. It was a symbol. A badge of validation for years of sweat, rejection, and silence. For the first time, the spotlight was fully on him. No more doubt, he was one of the best point guards on the planet. But perhaps the most impressive thing wasn't the trophy itself, it was how he earned it. Billups didn't drop 50 points. He didn't dunk over anyone. He didn't star in flashy commercials with theme songs and catchphrases. His dominance was tactical, emotional, and intellectual. He read the Lakers like someone decoding a complex cipher. He dismantled their system play by play. Every shot, every assist, every decision was part of a calculated plan that he executed with mastery. By the end of the series, even the harshest critics had to admit, Billups was the brain of that team. More than that, he was the soul. What stood out most was his demeanor after the win. No arrogance. No verbal revenge against those who had doubted him. Just gratitude, maturity, and pride in his journey. With that title and that award, Billups stopped being the player nobody wanted and became the leader of a dynasty, brief but powerful. The Pistons would return to contender status in the following years, always under the command of their cerebral floor general. His playing style began to inspire young point guards throughout the league. Coaches pointed to his demeanor as an example. Teammates spoke about his ability to make everyone around him better. It was the peak of an unusual, but powerful, journey. Chauncey Billups proved that you don't need to start strong to finish great. And that sometimes recognition comes late, but when it does, it stays for good. When we talk about NBA legends, most people think of astronomical stats, explosive dunks, or shattered records. But Chauncey Billups' legacy goes beyond the numbers. He never led the league in scoring. He was never the most athletic or the fastest. But his impact is measured in a different way, in wins, in leadership, and in the trust he inspired in his team. He was the guy teammates looked to in the hardest moments. The one who made the team believe even when the crowd went silent. A true silent leader, the kind who doesn't need to shout to be heard. On the court, Billups redefined the role of the modern point guard. He proved you don't need to be a physical phenom to run the game. What you need is basketball IQ, vision, patience, and courage. Off the court, he became a role model for generations. His story is studied as a case of resilience and long-term vision. He was invited to executive roles in NBA franchises, and his voice has always been respected when it comes to building winning teams. After all, he knew how to build victories from overlooked pieces. Younger players like Chris Paul, Kyle Lowry, and even Stephen Curry have cited Billups as an inspiration, not for his titles but for how he carried his career with class, effort, and integrity. In 2021, Billups returned to the NBA as head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers, bringing with him the same mindset that made him shine: vision, discipline, and belief in the process. His legacy isn't found only in trophies. It lives in every point guard who now believes that intelligence, consistency, and heart can also raise banners. Chauncey Billups showed us that heroes can rise from the silence. The story of Chauncey Billups is, above all, a reminder. A powerful reminder that talent without opportunity is like fire without oxygen, ready to ignite, but suffocated by circumstance. For years he was doubted. Players with less skill got more chances. Coaches gave up on him. The media forgot him. But what no one could extinguish was his heart. A champion's heart, one that refused to stop beating even in the darkest times. Chauncey was never the media darling, but he was the commander in the biggest moments. He never had LeBron's hype or Kobe's flash, but his impact was felt in the locker room, on the court, and throughout a team's culture. What makes his journey even more special is that it's real. It's not made of fairy tales or meteoric rises. It's made of stumbles, adjustments, and resilience. It's the story of a man who built his greatness brick by brick, without skipping steps, without shortcuts. And that's why his story touches the hearts of those who hear it. Billups teaches us that it doesn't matter how you start, it matters how you respond when you fall. He shows us that real success doesn't come from haste, but from persistence. That being a champion isn't just about lifting a trophy, it's about lifting yourself every time the world knocks you down. And what about you? Have you ever felt underestimated? Have you ever had to prove your worth when no one believed in you? Let us know in the comments how Chauncey's journey inspired you. If you liked this video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. And in our next video, we'll tell the story of Ben Wallace, the man who wasn't even drafted, but became every center's nightmare in the NBA. You won't want to miss it.